Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend and coach, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey Jim, I'm doing well. It's good to be with
Good.
you.
Yeah.
Excited about recording today. I'm
Yeah.
really excited about our subject.
Yeah, me too. It's funny, leadership. I don't think I heard of leadership before I heard of John Maxwell. Maybe 30 years
Mm.
ago, we talked about, being a servant and washing feet and being like a child, being the greatest and so forth. I think that Maxwell really raised some good points, though, that if you're going to serve, you serve as a leader. Jesus wasn't just a foot washer. He led, he spoke,
Yes,
he had to navigate the things we're going to be talking about today. And I think I love the topic of the day. You want to introduce us to the topic?
sure. It's entitled Three Temptations of Leadership.
Yeah.
And Jim, you and I have been around long enough to know that leadership is this trek that is fraught with peril. And I know you like the word fraught, and so that's why I
Fraught
used
with
it.
peril. It's the
Uh,
King James version. I get it though. I read it.
yes. And there's more than three temptations
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
leaders face. Numerous temptations lurk. And when I was in my first year of pastoral ministry at the ripe age of 22 years old,
Yeah.
um,
Let's see.
my lead pastor told me that the three biggest temptations for a male pastor was the three F's:
Okay.
fame, fortune, and females.
Well, that's not bad advice for a 22-year-old single youth pastor.
That's
Although
right.
you're not at risk of the first two as a youth pastor in the 80s or 90s. That was the third one was a big problem that may have
Yeah.
occurred.
And I mean those three F's still threaten
Yeah,
pastors. They've kind of stood the test of time.
yeah,
But I'd like to talk today about three temptations that I don't know get enough attention. They're less
yeah,
talked about. I think they're more subtle.
yeah,
But because they are more subtle, I think they have this capacity to sneak up on
mhm,
and ambush a leader. And so I'd like to talk about those and what a leader can do to avoid getting entangled in them.
right on.
I'll give you just the three real quick, and then
Yeah,
we'll dive a little deeper into each one. Here are the three that I'd like us to look at today. The first one is wanting everyone to like us. Jim, I want everybody to like me. But
sure.
over time, I'm discovering that everyone liking me is not a prerequisite for leadership success.
Yeah,
It would be great, and I wish it were true, but along the way, there are going to be people who don't. So that's the
yeah,
first one. The second one is demanding everyone in our church be rowing in the same direction.
yeah,
I think most leaders want every person who walks through the doors of the church they lead to be on board,
yeah,
to say, go get them, Tigers, so to speak. But
yeah,
I think that only happens in heaven. I don't believe that happens here on earth. And then here's the third one: expecting everybody to be excited or embrace your vision.
yeah,
Your values, the playbook that you've put together. I think again, I think every leader wants desperately for their members, their attendees to catch
yeah,
the vision, to embrace the behaviors that are core
yeah,
to that culture, and to be disciplined to run a simple playbook. But here's the truth: not everyone in the church you lead will do those things, will embrace.
no,
And so those are the big three, and I'd like you to maybe speak to that a little bit, and then we'll take each one and we'll go a little deeper.
yeah. I think one of the things that pastors have in common is they love God, they love people, and they love to serve. And
Yeah.
and you think, well, if I love God, everything will be wonderful. And if I love people, they'll love me back. And if I love to serve, everyone will, pitch in. And so I think that the danger here is there's a disillusionment, like
Mhm.
you can lose your faith in God, you can lose your faith in people, and you can lose your faith in the power of being who you are and serving because it's not what you expected. This is an analogy I've used lots with our congregation here is that if you think you're on Miami Beach, but you're on Omaha Beach, you just have the wrong expectation. This is war, So why isn't everything
Yeah.
happening? Well, it's because this isn't heaven. This isn't hell, but this is a place that has a lot of heaven and hell in it. And so
Yes.
we're storming beaches and there's bullets flying. And so having the right expectation of leadership, having the right expectation as a leader of the people you serve, the God you serve, the gifts that
Mm.
he gave you to serve them, it's everything. It properly frames your job. So if your job is to get everybody to like you, and if there's one person that doesn't, you go home with that person with all that real estate in your heart, you won't be able to
Right.
stay in the game. It's just impossible. Or if you harden your heart, well, people like that are a bunch of whatevers, and so I don't have to
Yeah.
listen. You won't be able to stay in the game. You gotta. So today's conversation is a very good one because everybody, leader or not, everybody's going to deal with this sooner or later. So excited to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts.
And I like what you said about right sizing our expectations. And I really
Yeah,
think that's what I'd like to do today. That's really what
yeah,
I'd like to accomplish
yeah,
is let's have a healthy set of expectations. So let's look at
yeah,
that first temptation, wanting everyone to like us. Uh, Now, I want to qualify this one a little bit, if that's all right. I'm
yeah.
not see if not being constrained by the obsessive need to be liked isn't the same thing as being obnoxious.
Right. Write that down. Right. Yeah.
We're not lobbying for you to have an attitude as a leader.
Right. Right.
Uh, and don't, I don't care what anybody thinks.
Right.
We're not suggesting that.
Right.
Um, Jesus had deep compassion for people.
Yeah.
He dealt with them gently, he dealt with them carefully, and yet when needed, he dealt with them pointedly.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, he knew who he was, he knew to whom he belonged, and so he didn't need the approval of others to complete his mission. And I think
Right.
sometimes we believe that if not everybody likes John or Jim or Sue or whomever, that we
Yeah.
can't get done what God has called us to do. And I want to just say that's not true.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not true. This unhealthy drive to be liked by everyone, I think, Jim, is rooted primarily in identity fracture.
Yeah.
When we don't get how fully loved and valued by God we are,
Right.
when we've not tapped into the fact that He's pleased with us, not because of what we do for Him, but because we're His son or daughter, um, we struggle with a deficit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what we should be getting from Jesus, we're expecting people to give to us.
Yeah.
And uh, and so you can pastor the church you lead, and it's our hope that everybody would like you, but we know better.
Yeah.
Um, we know not everybody's going to like you. And here's what we want you to think about is not to um, say, okay, then I don't care if anybody likes me and just be a bullish bully,
Right.
or something like
Right.
that. We're not saying that at all. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you want to see the balance, read the Gospels. Jesus gives you this perfect balance of
Yeah.
this. But listen, what we're trying to say, what I would like to say to you this morning is you don't need everybody to like you in order to complete the mission.
Right.
So resist that temptation
Yeah.
to feel this obsessive need that everybody thinks you're the best guy around or the best gal around.
Right. Right. Yeah. And again, if we're in the ministry because it helps us with our insecurities, that's a problem.
Yes, it is.
If we're in leadership, if we bake cookies for the PTA because everybody loves my cookies, I'm the cookie person. I mean, wow, I like the teaching you've been doing a lot lately about this is my beloved son, with whom I'm well pleased.
Yeah,
That unconditional, like that's what the Father said to the Son, and we hide ourselves in the Son, we clothe ourselves with Christ. So the
right.
blessings of Jesus are the blessings that we have. So we're not working for something, and trying to fill a void. We're working from something because there really isn't a void. It's an overwhelming, behold what the love that the Father's lavished on us, that we should be called the children of God. It's like
That's right.
I know these are words, but they're words that need to be meditated on, so that when somebody
Yep.
goes, I don't think I like where you're going, like that doesn't affect our relationship. That doesn't affect what I see when I look in the mirror. That doesn't
There you
affect,
go.
you're not my enemy now. I'm not insecure where you have to be a bad person. So I can be the good person. I don't need to talk to five people about, did you hear what brother so-and-so said? He's
Hmm.
always so divisive, isn't he? Trying to get people to agree with you so you're not alone. All these, I'm being exaggerative, but we do these things in subtle ways all the time. If we don't
Yeah,
have those voids filled, if we're not safe, then we need people to make us feel safe. We basically
right.
become a gang leader instead of a shepherd. That's a
That's
problem.
right. And so I would say to you, if you're listening or watching today and you have leadership responsibility, work on this idea that you go into every day. If you belong to Jesus, you go into every day with his approval,
Yeah,
with his pleasure over you. And if he's pleased with you, if he's delighted with you,
yeah,
you can run in the strength of that.
yeah,
And if you run into some folks today who don't like you,
yeah.
it won't take you off your game.
Right.
Work on that vertical understanding of God's
Yeah,
pleasure in your life,
yeah,
and that'll help you, Jim. That'll help me and all of
yeah.
us who are on this listening or watching this session today to not allow this temptation to overrun us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so here's the second one, demanding
Yeah.
that everybody be rowing in the same direction. Again, we're not proposing you allow the church to become a free-for-all, where
Right.
every person does what is right in their own eyes. We read that in the
Yeah.
Old Testament, and that that phrase, everybody did what was right in their own eyes, is
Yeah.
the precursor to chaos
Yep.
and all kinds of bad things. I mean, your leadership team, they have to be rowing in the same direction as you.
Right.
That if not, hard conversations need to be had. But I doubt that you're going to get 100% unity on organizational direction from everyone who tends the church you lead. I just feel like that is an expectation
Right.
that is miscast. It's oversized. Um, not everyone is going to jump on board and row with you.
Right.
Um, and you don't need that.
Yeah.
100%, you do not need 100% buy-in from the congregation in order for you to move the needle.
Right.
Now, I don't believe there's any wiggle room with the leadership team,
Right.
but I used to think, Jim, as a young lead pastor, if there was one person in the congregation who said, I think what you're doing is ridiculous,
Right.
that somehow or another I had to spend gobs of time
Yeah.
trying to get that person to see things my way.
Yeah.
And I think I expended a lot of time and energy that I could have used better in other places. I don't know. What do you think about this second one, Jim?
Yeah. I think, boy, I'm trying to say this the right way. A lot of the stories we would have to illustrate this, we were much younger when we were confused about this.
That's right.
The Bible says in Proverbs that wisdom is proved right by her actions. I think once there's a certain track record of making good decisions, and some people are liking them, some people not liking them. Sometimes people are healthy and they're trying to correct us. Some people they're unhealthy and they're trying to control us. And
Yeah.
you'll know the difference eventually. But I would just say, as you're saying here, the thought that I'm going to present a building program, or we're going to double services, or we're going back to one service, or I've got this new series. No matter what you want to talk about, no matter where you want to go, there's somebody probably that's not the direction they want to go in. That's reality. But the
Hmm.
difference between you and the people that you serve is that you've been delegated authority by God. So you got to lead. You can't
Right.
give up that delegation to somebody with a strong opinion. You got to lead and
Yeah.
and do it with a pure heart. Be humble. I'm not saying ignore everybody that has anything other to say than what exactly you're saying, because that would be wrong as well.
Correct.
It's an insecure leader. But I'm I've said many times I'm sorry that you disagree. I'm sorry that we're on the
Hmm.
same page on this. This series will only last 6 weeks. Hey, I'm sorry that we're on the same page with this. My predecessor, who was a great man, but this 1950s Pentecostal revivalist bulldozer
Yeah.
with a suit and tie on. We settled a disagreement one time by me saying to him, "Listen, you may be completely right, I may be completely wrong, but I'm the pastor now. So I can't be a proxy of your vision. I have to be a
Yes.
proxy of the vision that's on my heart. And I settled it by saying, and I'm younger than you are, and you're going to die before I do. So you better get used to it because I'm going to still be here when you're gone. And he laughed. And, if you knew him, he was like, okay, all right, I get what you're saying, kid. But
Yeah.
just, we don't have to have a war. We don't have to have division because we have different visions. You have authority of the vision. You should lead. You should serve with that vision, call people to agree with it. But in
Yeah.
time, wisdom will be proved right by your actions.
That's
And
right.
and that's good for everybody. A few wins under
Hmm.
the belt of a leader is good for everybody. But yeah, the thought that I'm going to lead, nobody's going to second guess or want to do it differently, that's naive. That's not true.
Right. And this third temptation is really kind of aligned with the second one, and that's
Yeah.
expecting everybody to embrace not just the vision, but your programming,
Yeah.
and the values, those behaviors that are the rumble strips of your organization. Um,
Yeah.
not we already said it. Not everybody's going to be excited about the vision you're casting.
Yeah.
Um, not everyone will be a good cultural fit in
Yeah.
terms of core values. Pastor, you're going to have people who will disagree with the simplicity of your playbook and want to complicate it.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we had somebody. Um, oh, I better be careful here too.
Right.
In my pastoral history, I'll just leave in the
Yes. Yeah.
16 years of pastoral ministry inside the walls of a church. Somebody came up to me one time and said, "Hey," and they were like at the church for 2 weeks. They had only been there 2 weeks. Pastor, we want to start a small group. Well, first of all, warning flag went up
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
And secondly, and I said, well, you've only been here 2 weeks, and we're not going to.
Yeah.
We want to get to know you. We want you to get to
Yeah.
know us, type of thing. But I was curious. And I said, well, what kind of small group were you thinking about? And they
Yeah.
said, well, we want to do a small group where we're all jumping on mini trampolines and worshiping on mini trampolines. And
Uh,
I said, well, let me save you some time.
yeah.
You can do that if you want to, but not under our auspices. We're not
Right.
gonna, we're not gonna allow that. Um, and I feel like that's where some of us, we stub our toe, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't want to offend people. Um, we don't want to pour cold water on somebody who's excited about an idea.
Yeah.
But part of our job as leaders is to make sure that we're not over programmed.
Yeah.
I'm amazed sometimes, Jim, at churches that are a size of maybe 100 or 150, and the quantity of programming is overwhelming. It's
Yeah.
like holy cow, and they're
Yeah.
complaining to me about we don't have enough people to serve, and it's like, well, nope,
Yeah.
you've got the programming. You're going to need to be with the programming you have. You're going to have to be a church of 3 times the size you are right now
Right.
just to have enough bodies
Right.
to
Right.
support this. And so, not
Mm.
everybody's going to love your playbook.
Yep.
Some people will want to add to your playbook. Some might want to subtract. But don't allow the inability of a few people who don't get it to discourage you.
Yeah.
You know, hold true to your values. Keep
Yeah.
casting vision. Run a simple but powerful playbook, and
Yeah.
don't get sucked into the I don't even know what the right word is. Get sucked into this downward spiral of, well, this pastor doesn't like me. This pastor, he said no to me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you get caught up in this whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
Look, not everybody is going to like the way you lead. And and that's not a prerequisite for you to be an effective leader. We're not talking about being a
Right.
bully again. I'm
Yep.
also not talking about being a doormat.
Right.
What I'm suggesting is you find the healthy middle ground
Okay.
between those two extremes. So, Jim, what do you think about this
Well,
third one?
I have a question for you, really, because there's a certain value that the new people in the church that want to have the rapture practice, jumping up and down on trampoline group or whatever. There's a certain in some ways, like let's say they weren't around for 2 weeks, they've been around for 10 years, maybe before you got there. They're
Yeah,
a pillar in the church. Excuse my voice today, but there's a certain value to unity, and there's a certain value to having more people. And if you say no to the rapture practice group, that they might want to go off and start their own trampoline park for Jesus somewhere or join some other church.
yeah,
I have found that if this church is no longer the right fit for you, or you're new here and you wanted this to be like your old church that you
yeah.
left because it was the Antichrist church or whatever, I weren't being fed or whatever the ridiculous answer is. I actually try to get them to go someplace else where they might be a better fit. And it does something for me. And that is the people that are here want to be here. And everybody knows that the hands are open, the doors are open. I'll set up a meeting with you and this pastor. They have trampolines in their worship service. Like, would you want me to introduce? I think you might be a better fit there, and I'm excited for them to go find their
Yeah.
people. Do you think that's a good idea, a bad idea? Or what would you? Because there's a value to unity, I find, over the value
Yeah,
to having more people, but less unity.
sure.
Does that make sense or no? What's your
I
thoughts?
think I think I think that's contextual, Jim. If you've got I'm thinking a little bit negatively here. Firstly,
Yeah.
if you've got a pastor down the road that you don't care for that much, and you say, hey, that would be a great church for you to go
Yeah.
to.
Have you ever
Uh,
considered Mormonism as an option? I'm just curious.
yes.
They
Yeah.
they need you.
No. I would say no to that.
Yeah.
But I do think that sometimes that's the right approach. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not sure this is going to be a good fit for you, but
Right.
here's some other churches that I know that you might want to investigate. And
Right.
I'm good friends with the pastor, or I know them
Yeah.
well. I know what their church is about, and that might. So I think sometimes that is
Yeah.
appropriate. The thing is I don't, even with that, I still feel like you're always going to have a few squeaky wheels. And
Sure.
that's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to pastor or lead an organization with no negative stuff that might be happening,
Yeah.
again, that's in heaven. That's not here on planet
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah.
So, so if I could just kind of wrap it up, Jim, in my mind, so you listen, Pastor, you don't need everyone to like you to accomplish your
Right.
assignment. Just don't use that as an excuse to stay underdeveloped in your people skills.
Good. That's good. Yeah.
Develop your people skills. This is not a summons for you to be rude or
Right.
impatient.
Right.
Secondly, you don't need everybody to be rowing in the same direction to get where you're going. However, don't ignore the obvious warning signs that your leadership team might be fragmenting. I
Yeah.
mean, they need to be, their oar needs to be in the water, and they need to be
Yeah.
rowing with you. And
Right.
then thirdly, again, you don't need everybody to be passionate about your vision or committed to your playbook or even living out the core values for you to reach the end zone, for you to get to across the finish line. Keep casting
Yeah.
vision,
Yep.
keep your playbook simple, and keep using core values to shape the culture you want and need.
It's good.
Um, so that's what I have
That's good, John.
this morning,
Yeah.
Jim.
I love it. That insecure leader, the bully we're talking about. Often bullies are cowards. They're
Very
afraid,
true.
so they
Very true.
use whatever their height, their stature, their position, the guy next to them to be bolder. Because I've learned that people who are right don't need to yell.
Yeah.
They don't need to manipulate. They can just people who have truth don't. They're not afraid to compare it to other things. That sort of thing. So knowing who you are, knowing who God is, knowing what you're called to do, and then being a simple person of peace and vision, man, and then doing it for a really long time in the same direction,
Yes.
you got
Yes.
something there. So yeah, thanks, John. That's beautiful. Thanks for your thoughts and this wisdom today. And we hope as you're listening to this, you're like, that makes sense to me. But I understanding it and understanding it and applying it are two different things. We at Converge Coaching would love to if you're wrestling with any of this, to walk you through it, because often what it takes is another set of eyes, another voice, maybe some more personal stories and things, and connecting you in a higher way to God, to yourself, and to your vision with confidence. Because if you don't have confidence, then people can tell who's confident and who's faking it. People know the arrogant bully. People know the humble servant. Knowing who you are, knowing who God is, and knowing what you're supposed to be doing is extraordinarily important to your leadership. And one of the things we love to do is helping you discover those things. So if we can be a part of this archaeological dig for your purpose, man, we're in. Get a hold of us at convergecoach.com. Click on the link. Let's spend 30 minutes talking about how Converge might be helpful to you in this process, or walk you through something. It might be a 30-minute conversation and it's done. It might be the beginning of a lot of new things for you. And that's what we pray for. We hope and pray that you will find God in new ways, yourself in new ways, and that vision that comes out of that gets us out of bed every morning. So God bless you, dear watchers and listeners. We hope that you will take this to heart, put it in practice, teach it to others that don't know it, as you continue to lead from alignment.